one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest of the early Zen masters, Mazu, or in Japanese pronunciation, Baso. He lived in the 8th century. He spoke very precisely about this. He said the following: 4 Chinese characters, very simple. Way needs no cultivation. The way, the true way of practice, does not need to be cultivated, contrived, manipulated. Again, the way needs no cultivation. You don't have to perfect it. If we stop here, it's easy to misunderstand. Oh, so I don't have to do anything. I'll just sit here and somehow I'll get great at playing the piano. I don't think so. Let us continue with what Mazu or Baso is saying. The way needs no cultivation. Just don't defile. Defile means to stain or make dirty, corrupt it. Again, the way needs no cultivation. Just don't defile. Mazu Baso goes on to explain. He says, what is defilement? When, with the mind of birth and death, one acts in a contrived way, manipulates, artificial, a contrived way, everything is defilement. To directly and immediately enter the way, your ordinary mind is the way. This is a quote from Mazu or Baso, and it ends with a very famous statement: ordinary mind is the way. But I trust you can see now it doesn't just mean as it is in the simple sense, but rather in the true sense, giving ourselves fully without the least defilement, without any speculation or contriving. For example, trying to get to some ideal state. This is defilement. Again, to quote Mazu or Baso, the 8th century Chinese master, the way needs no cultivation. Just don't defile. What is defilement? When, with the mind of birth and death, one acts in a contrived way, everything is defilement. To directly and immediately enter the way, your ordinary mind is the way. Now, let me put this in terms of koan practice or shikantaza, just sitting through. I have been asked to briefly address these questions. What is this koan practice, and what is shikantaza in Japanese, or just sitting through? You're all familiar with koans, at least cases written in a book or talked about, But a koan, just like a musical instrument or falling in love, only really comes to life when it comes from out of us. It's not something we put in. We add in, okay, now here's a koan. I'm going to think about that. No. In the beginning, it may be that way. We read or hear a Zen koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? At first, yes, it's something we may think about, but then it's not yet really a koan. When it starts to come from inside us as our own question, so to speak, then it starts to spring to life. We start to be able to see it and feel it and touch it everywhere. The same with what is called shikantaza, or just sitting through. simply put, people identify this usually with the Soto Zen. For example, Dogen Zenji often spoke of Shikantaza, but it's not really a Rinzai or a Soto thing. Very simply, Shikantaza, or just sitting through, is simply letting the sitting, the Zazen itself, be the whole thing, the whole thing. In other words, falling in love with the sitting itself, not being separate from the sitting, not by one iota, by one atom. In a sense, to do this is a very pure practice, very pure, to just sit through without one thing, without one desire, without one expectation, without one thought of attainment, but to just sit through, to fall in love with the sitting itself and just give yourself with the breath. It's all right there. Whether we simply give all of ourselves to the sitting, the zazen itself, this is quite enough. If we don't defile it, as Mazu or Baso said. A koan also can be defiled if we turn it into some thing that we think about or try to attain. Again, I urge you, if you want to work with the real koan, swallow it and then let it come from here rather than putting something in. See that it's already alive and breathing in you as you. The practice is really not so difficult, but in the beginning, to get really comfortable with the practice, settled, truly settled at one with the practice, can take some time. But it's not really because the zazen is so difficult, but it's rather the difficulty is with our mind, what our mind is doing with it. So in zazen, it's helpful just to leave the thoughts, the judgments, the expectations aside. You don't have to kill them or shoot them down, but you don't need to pay attention to them. Just pay attention to what? To what is immediately right here in front of you, before a thought even arises. That is the way we really play a musical instrument. That is the way we really fall in love. There's a saying in Japanese, above the rider, saddle. You know what a saddle is? That's what you put on a horse when you ride it. Above the saddle, no rider. Below the saddle, no horse. This sounds like some kind of a word game. But no, it's talking about what a master horseman is. When someone has really mastered riding a horse, he's not sitting there bouncing up and down on the horse. He is completely one with it. So the expression above the saddle, there's no rider. Below the saddle, there's no horse. That is truly riding. That is truly how we play an instrument. That is how we truly love one another. And that is how we truly sit zazen. And if there are difficulties, please open up, see. Do you need to adjust your posture? Again, we are not here to torture ourselves, but we're not here to make it as comfortable as possible either, because you'll probably just fall asleep. So zazen posture is important, but it's not torture. In the beginning, it can be painful, but if we listen, respect our body, and get used to it, get really settled in the sitting, in the practice, it becomes the most natural thing in the world. Then you can see what Baso, what Mazu really meant when he said, the way needs no cultivation. Just don't defile.